It takes 20 years to raise a child, but only a second to lose a life. It takes 500 years to build an empire, but often less than a decade for it to vanish into dust. We are taught to believe that history moves in straight lines. We are conditioned to think that if growth is slow, steady, and hard-earned, then decline must be equally slow and steady. We comfort ourselves with the idea that we will see the end coming from miles away, that we will have time to hit the brakes. But the universe doesn't work like that. There is a mathematical pattern hidden in the architecture of every civilization, every stock market, and every corporation. It dictates that while creation is difficult and sluggish, destruction is rapid and effortless. The Romans felt it. The Mayans felt it. And right now, looking at the fragility of our global supply chains and the mountain of debt holding up the world economy, we are standing on the edge of the exact same precipice. It is called the Seneca Cliff, and the terrifying truth of this pattern is that once you go over the edge, there is no grabbing onto the rocks to stop the fall. 2,000 years ago, the Roman philosopher Lucius Annaeus Seneca looked around at the greatest empire the world had ever seen. To the average citizen, Rome was invincible. It was eternal. But Seneca saw the cracks in the marble that others ignored. In a letter to a friend, he wrote a chilling observation that defines our reality today. Increases are of sluggish growth. But the way to ruin is rapid. This is the Seneca Effect. In modern systems theory, it explains why stability is actually a trap. We spend decades adding complexity to our systems, making them faster, more efficient, and more interconnected. But in doing so, we unknowingly remove the shock absorbers. We trade resilience for efficiency. Think of it like building a house of cards. Placing the first few cards is easy. The base is stable. But as you build higher, adding the top layer requires extreme precision. The structure looks tall and impressive. It looks like growth, but it has actually become infinitely more fragile than when it was just a messy pile of cards on the table. We saw a glimpse of this in 2008. The financial system didn't slowly degrade over 10 years, it froze in a week. We saw it in 2020 when the global supply chain didn't slowly unwind, or it snapped overnight. The question isn't if the cliff is coming for the current economy. The question is, why are we speeding up as we approach the edge? To understand where we are going, we have to look at where we've been. Let's look at the classic example, Rome. Rome didn't fall simply because it ran out of soldiers. It fell because of the cost of complexity. For centuries, Rome grew by conquering new lands and looting their gold. This was the slow, upward climb of the Seneca curve. But eventually, they ran out of rich neighbors to conquer. To maintain their massive borders, they needed a massive army. To pay the army without new loot, they had to debase their currency. The silver content in the Roman denarius coin dropped from 100% to nearly 0% in just a few generations. The system became too expensive to maintain. It became rigid. When the Visigoths finally sacked Rome in 10 AD, the population of the city didn't slowly decline over centuries. It collapsed from over 1 million people to just a few thousand in a historical blink of an eye. The aqueducts were still there, the roads were still there. But the complex economic network required to feed 1 million people had snapped. Or consider the Irish potato famine of the 1840s. It sounds like a biological event, but it was an economic cliff. Ireland had optimized its food production around a single high-yield crop, the lumper potato. It was incredibly efficient. It supported a population boom. It was the growth phase. But that efficiency created zero redundancy. They had removed the safety net. When the blight hit, the system didn't have a backup plan. The population of Ireland collapsed by 25% in just a few years. In the corporate world, this happens every day. Kodak, Nokia, Blockbuster. These weren't small companies, they were empires. They spent decades building dominance. But when the technology shifted the tipping point, their revenue didn't slowly taper off. it fell off a cliff. They all made the same mistake. They mistook their size for safety. They didn't realize that the bigger you are, the harder gravity pulls when you slip. So, how do we spot the cliff before we fall? The Seneca Effect follows a specific, terrifying mechanism driven by feedback loops. It generally happens in 4 distinct stages. Stage 1 is the slog of growth. Building a system takes energy. You have to lay foundations, train workers, and build trust. This is negative feedback. Growth is hard, and gravity pulls you back. It is slow, painful work. Stage 2 is the peak of fragility. This is where we get arrogant. We optimize everything. Just-in-time delivery, lean manufacturing. We remove all the slack in the system to maximize profit. The system looks strong because it is profitable, but it has become rigid. It has lost the ability to bend. Then comes stage 3, the trigger. A small event occurs. In a resilient system, a small shock is absorbed. In a Seneca system, the shock propagates. Because everything is tightly connected, a failure in one part pulls down the next. Finally, stage 4, positive feedback collapse. This is the cliff. Panic begets panic. Selling causes more selling. Bank runs cause more bank runs. Unlike growth, which has to fight against gravity, collapse is aided by gravity. The structure wants to fall. As Seneca said, the path to ruin is rapid. Now, look at the world today. We have built the most efficient, complex machine in human history. We don't store food in warehouses anymore. It's all on trucks, moving constantly in a just-in-time dance. We don't keep cash in vaults. It's all digital digits, leveraged 100 to 1. We don't make things locally. A single microchip passes through 7 different countries before it reaches your phone. We have achieved maximum efficiency. And by definition, that means we have achieved maximum fragility. Look at the global debt. We are borrowing from the future to keep the present illusion of growth alive. We are printing trillions to prevent even the smallest correction. By preventing the small forest fires, the small recessions, we have allowed the dead wood to pile up. We're stopping the natural cycle of correction. This doesn't prevent the crash. It ensures that when the crash comes, it will be a Seneca Cliff. Consider the internet. It is the nervous system of the global economy. A major cyber event or a solar flare wouldn't just slow down the economy, it would unplug it. The speed of information today means the speed of panic is instant. In 1929, it took days for news of the crash to fully reach Europe. Today, algorithms crash markets in milliseconds. We are standing at the top of the curve. The view is great. The numbers look good. But the ground beneath us is hollow. What happens when the modern Seneca Cliff hits? It won't look like a standard recession. It will be a phase change. Like water turning to ice, the state of the economy will shift instantly. Access to capital will vanish overnight. Complex supply chains will break, leaving shelves empty not due to a lack of product, but a lack of coordination and trust. Hyper-specialized jobs will disappear because the complex network that requires them no longer exists. The danger of the Seneca Cliff is that it happens faster than human institutions can react. Governments move at the speed of bureaucracy. They hold meetings, they pass bills, but the cliff moves at the speed of mathematics. By the time the solution is signed, the floor has already fallen out. This sounds apocalyptic, but it is actually a return to reality. The cliff is the system's way of correcting an imbalance that has gone on too long. It is the bill coming due for decades of easy growth and ignored risks. Seneca wasn't a pessimist. He was a realist. He understood that nothing that goes against the laws of nature can last forever. The lesson of the Seneca Cliff isn't to despair. It is to prepare. It is to understand that the systems we rely on are mortal. The lesson is to value resilience over efficiency. To build systems and lives that can withstand a shock rather than ones that are optimized only for fair weather. Growth is slow. Ruin is rapid. But recovery recovery is a choice. If you want to understand the mechanics of the machine before it breaks, and if you want to see the warning signs that the rest of the market is ignoring, make sure you are subscribed. We're tracking the curve, and you don't want to miss what comes next.